And we are back, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm going to be closing out today with Adam Grossman from The Selling Factory. Adam is a co-founder, and we're going to go in and really cover, if you're looking to build something internal, you're looking to externalize it, whatever that may look like, we're going to give you our insights around building sales development programs. There's different layers of that, right? There's, outsourcing offshore. There's working with partners from more of a call center aspect. There's appointment setting firms that go out and just hit the data and use LinkedIn, things like that to set appointments. And then there's sales partners. And Adam and I we're sales partners at the end of the day, right? We try to make sure that as we, engage with a client, that we can do what we can to service their exact needs. So Adam, welcome to the session, bud.
So glad to be here. Thank you for giving us this great honor. I probably should introduce myself a little bit.
Absolutely.
You're giving me the floor. A sales professional's dream. My background is I am from Ohio originally. I was a man on the street, a radio personality back in the late 90s did stupid stunts, ended up going to Boston and ended up being in concert promotion, then media buying, and then went to Australia to surf and bartend, dyed my hair blonde, lived the Australian dream. And somehow in this process, I became passionate about wanting to serve people. And while I was not connected to my religious identity at the time, I ended up becoming a rabbi. And what I learned very quickly when I became a rabbi is that the tools that you learn in clergy are the tools needed in today's marketplace. Actively listen, learn people's pain point, and through learning about a person's pain point, help to find a mutual benefit. And through that period of being in the rabbinate and then ultimately founding 2 companies, 2 nonprofits, I've been very fortunate to become a co-founder of The Selling Factory, which was built 4 years ago. We'll talk a little bit more about The Selling Factory as we go through this process on Nomad. And that was one of our great students, Sarah Lentz. We have almost 80 of them right now. So I'm so excited to talk about how the Selling Factory and SDR work can really help to support companies, especially college students.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, and Adam and I are both in the Florida market now. We met at one of the Synapse events. I'm on the board for Synapse, which is a nonprofit all about the innovation in the state of Florida. So we get really excited and passionate about what we're trying to accomplish here in the Florida market. And as we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, we realized that, the Selling Factory and QM are not really competitors. I'm sure we overlap in some areas, but we're really trying to do the same thing, right? We're trying to help give people a career development path, right? And Adam is capable of doing that in a much earlier stage than we are because we're over on the other side doing more complex sales. So it's great when, folks have worked for organizations like Adam and they get the skill sets that are necessary that they can apply when they go out and leave that college environment into a full-time position and with organizations like ours and others. So what Adam thought would make sense today is if we sat down and had, a joint chat about kind of the state of the market and what options are out there and why sales development. Because sales development is very critical for every organization. When I was sitting down having that conversation with Henry Schuck, the founder and CEO of ZoomInfo from this morning's session, Henry and I were both talking about the fact that there is no illusion around companies that are going IPO, getting a merger acquisition done, doing whatever it is that they're set out to do to grow their organization. There is a 90% probability that they had to have figured out how to do inside sales development because the organizations that are doing that in the market have a well-defined machine. And Adam, you and I talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I was doing a little research behind the scenes, and Goldman Sachs, my assumption is many have heard of this bank, says that sales growth is the strongest determinant of IPO outperformance. They go on to say that since 2010, IPOs with an annual sales growth of greater than 20% have been more likely to outperform the Russell 3000, which is an index of the 3,000 top traded companies in the exchange. For sales growth to happen, as Matt, you just talked about, it's essential to have a systematic sales development process. And why is that? Because It keeps your account executives and your sales professionals focused on closing deals. That's what brings in revenue. It also creates a consistent pipeline of development to allow your account executives to have more at-bats. Sales is a science, not an art form. And the more mathematical opportunities an individual has, the more opportunities that we have to close deals and lead to greater revenue. It allows us to develop new markets. And what I love, I don't want to pick a favorite. I think all of them are fantastic. But the thing that I have come to realize about that first SDR space is that it's frontline feedback. Are the cadences that we're using of value? Are the things we're expressing to individuals the things that inspire an individual to activate or not? And that information can be vital as an individual moves forward in their sales process along a company's growth strategy.
Yeah, and Adam, before we get into why companies struggle with sales development, right? We're going to talk about that pretty in depth in the session today. But one of the things that you and I really align on is, we look at this as a situation for us to be responsible for the SDRs, right? When I was an SDR, started back in 2008 with Infoblox, NetCordia then, and going in, it was literally, there wasn't inside sales as it's defined today, right? It literally, you get hired, you get a list of phone numbers, a phone book, and a phone, and it's go. Here's a basic, call script. And today, what I've watched since 2008 is this maturity around sales development and how intentional it is, because it's become impactful even from the C-level, right? We spend a lot of time trying to help C-level folks understand how important it is to get this right. But then one of the areas that Adam and I talk a lot about is the ability for organizations to support a sales development rep or a sales development team the right way. Because most organizations, they're not thoughtful in the way that, hey, they need coaching, they need training, they need support. There's going to be all kinds of things they need from marketing to get the alignment down. And it's okay to not have some of those things, but you need to be thoughtful in regards to what someone needs to be successful. It's not easy now to just take a phone and a phone book and go have the level of success that folks put on them as far as the expectations and the outcome. And that's where, Adam and I spent a little bit of time just talking about how much we are concerned about the experience that these SDRs are having, to the point where, Adam made a comment to me the other day that, when we talk to organizations that aren't quite ready for a program from one of us, helping them understand what they need to do to even kind of mature enough to support someone coming in, because we don't want to put sales development reps in a position where, they go over and fail under that kind of leadership. So Adam, if you could, I want to really just dive into the struggle points.
Yeah.
I know that you guys are on the earlier stage, right, with that career development, and it's really interesting for me to hear your perspective here.
Yeah, Matt, you set that up so nicely. Talk about at-bats. I mean, you just gave me a bunny.
Considering we didn't rehearse any of this, man, it's it shows you the alignment.
So, and just to give a framework of the selling factory, what we do is we identify and recruit talent between 18 and 22 at the University of Florida. We then train that talent on all aspects of the selling process, and then oversee and deploy that talent to our client companies to create SDR experiences. And why I say that is many companies rely on entry-level resources without a process or a program in place. So there's a thought that if we hire entry-level talent and they come in, they're just going to do a fantastic job. But in sales, as we know, there's no magic pill. There's no secret sauce. It takes work. There are no shortcuts, and you get what you pay for. And while an entry-level SDR has a lot of potential and it's extraordinary to bring on your team, they also need a lot of coaching, training, and support, which can be costly with stress, time, and money. It is valuable to ensure that you have a process in place, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but a process in place that allows that individual to be successful. Because unfortunately, bad SDR hires will cost a lot of money, time, and stress, and it will lead to a lot of turnover. It is difficult to find and retain talent. As those that were on just before, there's a process to get qualified talent into the door, but not doing the necessary program necessary. Is that if we're consumed with constantly hiring and onboarding rather than coaching the current team, it becomes an ineffective and vicious cycle that costs us a lot. And just to give a dollar figure on this, and Matt and I talked about this yesterday, one SDR, the salary is not what the cost is. The cost is actually 2 times that, with all the other stuff that goes into it. So that could be ongoing recruiting, ongoing onboarding, ongoing stress. So a $50,000 SDR cost an organization in a year about $100,000. There is also a lack of alignment with company objectives. Let's be candid with ourselves. Metrics are important. They're essential to determining if someone is doing a valuable job or is worth the ROI that we're putting in to that individual. However, having metrics for metrics' sake doesn't matter. What metrics are most important for are the ones that support your teams to accomplish what their goals are. Again, if their goal is a mathematical formula of a certain revenue figure, what are the things we need to look at to ensure not that they're just getting to the dollar figure, but how we can improve how they're going from call to action to continued touch points? Because we can coach up individuals as opposed to move aside individuals. And last but not least, there's a lack of thoughtful strategy and tools to qualify leads for SDRs. This is really important. It takes minimally 11 to 14 touch points to activate a prospect to engage. Having this process of each touch point laid out specifically is essential for an SDR success. If they don't have it, they're not going to be successful. We can automate some of that either with a human or tech or digital to make it more efficient. But we also have to make sure that we have the tools necessary to make this process more efficient. So again, we can increase the pipeline and give our account executives much more opportunities to increase revenue.
Yeah, and Adam, I hear this a lot, right? We get into, for qualified meeting side at least, we get into an engagement and somebody says, oh, I read somewhere that an SDR should get 15 opportunities a month. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic. So at $250,000 a piece for these opportunities that, you're selling into the enterprise market, by your definition, you're going to spend $100,000 on an SDR. You expect them to get $10 million back in revenue. And we really need to understand that, right? And we like to model backwards. What is the sales goal? How do we align that to a team of sales development reps? But also, even when I was back in my 4Scout day, I operated as a business within the organization trying to drive ROI. So I would start off, my first year just trying to get a 5X ROI for new customer logos based on what it costs me to have an individual SDR assigned to that specific region or territory. Going into the second year, we may look at being able to double that to a 10X. So for every dollar we spent on an SDR resource, we got $5 back. And just in that theory alone, I think that's a pretty good model. So when you're assigning quota, I think it's very important not to just aim for the stars, because there is a such thing as setting a quota so high that you really turn people off and the ability to hit those or accomplish those goals. And there is another side of it where you go too low and you're not, accelerating the path that an SDR could have as well. Adam, do you see that a little bit where companies are kind of all over the board with kind of assigning the quotas and things like that?
It's I love the analogy you just gave. I use the analogy of imagine if our goal is to get, so a lot of times, let's say in space, right? And I say, we're going to shoot to the end of the universe and we get to the moon, but we've never actually been to space before. And we don't have the rockets. We don't have the know-how. And we said, we're going to Pluto. And yet we get to the moon. Well, we really feel crappy if we get to the moon, if our goal was Pluto. And yet we had no opportunity to get outside of our atmosphere before getting to the moon. So instead of shooting for goals that just aren't realistic, we have to take an honest assessment of where we're at. What really is our process that we have used previously? How many leads does it take to get one qualified meeting? Right? It may take 1,000 for one, right? Then we can't say to somebody, well, we expect you to have 8 meetings. Well, where are the 8,000 leads for them? So there has to be consistency and a real honest look, an authentic look at our business and how we want to grow and what's it going to take to get there. So again, let's start with the moon. Let's get to Pluto. And I think that's where it's really important. And that's where, look, Matt, as we've talked about ad nauseum in a good way, there are different sales development models out there to help companies get to that point where they can shoot for the moon and then get beyond to Pluto. And I'd love to hear a little bit more from you and maybe everyone else as well about some of those models that individuals can use to jumpstart their sales growth.
Yeah, and Adam, I mean, this is a lot for me where Qualified Meetings even came from, right? When I was at Forescout and I had, operation versus capital expenditure to spend, and I had a team of 35 people, we needed more resources, no current budget to go hire full-time people, I started exploring the market and what I could get out of the market, right? So what I quickly found was there was a couple of really easy identifiable types of businesses that were out there. The call center model is there, right? Where it's, hey, we're going to not really completely understand everything that you do down to the 1-inch level in the way that it could align to your account executive, but we can tell a good story from a script, right? We're going to go out and read script, go through data, and kind of kickstart some information exchange outbound to the market. And in some cases, that's a really good model for organizations that aren't really completely ready to commit to this long-term sales cycle or sales plan and how they're going to develop more of a predictable sales model. They just need to kick things off and get them started. So that call center aspect is out there, right? Where if you just need it to go fast, not be as quite as intelligent in the product set or the services side. And listen, there's also a way to segment what you're trying to do in the market. If you're selling gadgets and those gadgets are under $5,000, there's probably a repeatable way to do that through a higher touch, lower knowledge framework situation where it could be repeatable and predictable. So the call center aspect, Adam, I mean, that's one of them. I'm sure you're familiar with it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, and we'll get more, is that, look, the call center in and of itself is designed for volume. There is a good aspect in that you can get a lot of calls, a lot of dials. At the same time, that could be a challenge for your company. It could lead to a negative relationship with your company at a volume play.
Yeah, you got to be really careful about that. And listen, when I was at Forescout, listen, we were trying to go IPO. We were very determined to do what we were going to do, and we did it. So we were always concerned about our brand integrity. Who's saying what about the organization? How are they saying it? I need to be able to hear these things. I want to know who's out there representing my brand, right? So you don't get that white label approach of where they're wearing your badge. It's typically, somebody really smart about sales development, like Adam and I show up and there's 10 people in the back room that we don't meet that are doing whatever they're going to do to go get those meetings. And there's a time and a place for some of those things. And then you look over to the other side, there's more of an appointment setting side of this, Adam, where the intention are to just go get people to raise their hand, take a call with you, right, at whatever cost, right? We'll bait them in with a gift card. We'll go out and use whatever new technology gets them to respond on LinkedIn. We'll go out and try to, send a lot of messages out to market through email and do as much intelligence there as we can and just drive people to raise hands. And then you get, you pay for that actual appointment. And that's another model. So there's that, you have this call center, which is kind of a early stage start to what you want to do, right? It's just getting the velocity engine going. Definitely going to be script messaging where people are going to read off a script. If things get asked beyond that, it's always refer back to the client. And then you have these appointment setters that are really focused on just getting somebody to take a meeting, right? And when I subscribed to some of that, when I was at Forescout and many other places, the challenge I have was, and earlier in the conference today, I talked about, being a CEO and somebody calls me about janitorial service products. And I'm not responsible for that for the office, right? So I got a lot of where we were selling in things that we needed engineers for, and we were kind of getting that janitorial service meeting where somebody had gotten a $25 gift card, showed up to a meeting, we're sitting there staring at each other, don't really know what to expect. And then, there are meetings that come out of that are fruitful. So I'm not going to say that model doesn't work. It's a big model, but you just have to be very strategic about what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to accomplish something fast, and you're not worried about the long-term effects of your database and your brand messaging, and you want to maybe control that in certain markets, definitely something you can do. Adam, any other comments about more of the
it's so spot on. And I think when it comes to AI and the appointment setters, again, it's a volume play. The challenge with volume at times, if it is the appointment setters are only as good as the algorithm or the human component of it. So let's say you have 30 meetings, you have one a day, but you notice pretty quickly that one out of those 30 are valuable. Well, we've wasted 29 hours of our time that we could be doing a lot of other stuff. That it just doesn't. It is that time suck of unqualified leads, and I like how you talked about the janitorial in engineering. Is it's something we have to weigh that ROI, and it's so important when we're talking about sales development. Really building out the sales formula and the mathematical formulas of the real cost of a lead, right? So it might cost $1 per lead. However, what about those other 30 hours or 29 hours that you lost? What are those costing? Cost of stress, the cost of time, the cost of onboarding, cost of recruiting. All those things are embedded in each hour that you're losing.
Yeah, and all great points. I mean, so when we look at we compete with markets to a degree with the call centers and the appointment setting firms, and you and I really focus on building more of a strategic sales partnership, right? The other one would be that internalized team, which a lot of organizations go with. Heck, we work with a lot of organizations that have an internalized team, and we become like more of that SEAL Team 6 that comes in kicking down very strategic doors for them. So, I mean, as far as that internal team, Adam, I think that's where you guys really are preparing. Listen, if your reps aren't leaving and coming to qualified meetings, which is ultimately my goal, right? I'll say that to you now. If they're not doing that, we're all preparing them to go to work somewhere else internally, right? So there's just being thoughtful for the people you're hiring internally, which is why we wanted to have this call. It's not just about us as the outsource mechanism here. There's a lot of things to think about when you're building an internal team and a way to do it right. And our job, Adam, is to make sure that executives are educated in a way that they know what's needed to support these teams. The management team knows how to treat people and help them become successful in the role. And then the SDRs, we want to make sure that we help them set expectations of what their impact is for these organizations, right? So just your feedback on that internal piece and maybe some tips on what people should look like if they are building their own internal operation.
So if I'm not mistaken, you do have one of our graduates, Haley Sobel. I'm giving her a shout out right now. So Haley, if you're listening, well done.
She's definitely listening. The entire QM crew is online. So look, internal teams are great. The challenge with building an internal team is not finding talent I'll say it's not about finding people. It's about finding talent and having the processes that we talked about before to set them up for success. Zoom Info just talked about the churn rate of people and how important it is not just to qualify them on the front end, but really give them the tools to allow them to be successful once they're in the process. So if we are unable to provide that oversight, that management, that coaching, that takes a lot of our time, and we see internally that we are spending a lot of money, time, and stress on the constant hiring, recruiting, and onboarding, and we're seeing burnout and turnover at what could be between 60 or 80%, then there's got to be a better solution than continually going down the cycle of hiring, training, watching them leave or burn out, and then doing it all over again. So if that is becoming an issue, trying to find a space that focuses on that SDR role in a way that allows your account executives to succeed, because as a company, that's our number one priority, right? How can we generate the revenue necessary to support our organization and potentially support our investors and others? So if that's the goal, we don't necessarily need to build the SDR team on our own. We just need to find the right partner to enable our account executives to be their best selves. That's the goal.
So that's really where it gets into our models, which are a lot different. And this is always a challenge. I don't know, Matt, if you get this, I know you kind of alluded to it, is comparing a qualified meetings or the selling factory, the call center or an appointment setting, or even an internal team. While we all try to find a relationship or apples to apples, it's just not the same as one would find with a real partnership in the process of account executive growth or revenue growth for a company.
Yeah, that's a major statement right there, right? And it's like at any given time, I have 50 bosses, all the clients that we sign up with, we take that responsibility, ownership of being a partner. We're not just someone that's hiding behind the curtain, right? We're very transparent. One of the things that you mentioned, we take a lot of pride in the program build, right? So listen, the SDRs are definitely the most valuable assets that we have, hands down, in our organization, right? But if you build a strategic program, right, and you have the recruiting mechanism, the training, the ongoing support, the systems, the tools, the data, and then the Northern Star around what are you trying to accomplish with this team? If you have that built first and then you insert the SDR, it's a lot easier and it goes a lot better, right? Where a lot of companies go wrong is that they throw SDRs at a desk. And I talked about this a little bit earlier today. There's a major difference in having SDRs in a cubicle and having an SDR program. And I think that's where our experience becomes a lot better and more enjoyable for the sales development reps. And then even in some cases, our clients, right? We don't just outsource, we help companies rebuild programs, right? So if they have people in place today, we want to give them the best tools, the best training, the best coaching. We want to make sure that the company themselves, from an executive level down, understands what this team is trying to accomplish. How do we hold them accountable to what's meaningful for the organization, not just some number they got made up in a boardroom? So we spent a lot more time really building the program piece out, and then it becomes a lot easier to insert someone once there's a defined objective and aligning that persona of that SDR to the right program. I mean, we even have some cases where we have to realign people. We brought them in for a complex program in the security market. They didn't really like it, didn't make sense. We moved them over to something maybe more high velocity or fun, and they thrived in that environment. So we're able to move people around like that. But a lot of organizations, you can't do that. So once you bring someone in, it's your responsibility to make sure that experience is good for both your organization and the employee. So be as thoughtful as you can about how you build these programs. Think about who's doing the training, who's going to support folks, right? When I started as an SDR back in, I think it was 2008, I keep saying, I was very needy, right? I needed everything from marketing. I needed everything from sales. I was constantly just looking for people to help me hit my number because I didn't know what I was doing. And it took me 6 months before I ever did. So if you can be thoughtful in advance of that happening, right? Think about, when people go to hit the phones or do the outbound, what kind of model is it? Are you a highly transactional model where you have gadgets that are $10,000, $5,000 and less? Are you mid-market enterprise? What makes sense in that space as far as those cadence that Adam had mentioned? Because we have our own 2352-step methodology that we use, and that changes from enterprise to mid-market to SMB. So Adam, I mean, when you think about some of the organizations that we talk to, right? I think that most of the time they're missing the program piece, right? They can go out and find talent, but then you got talent and now they're here. What are you doing with them?
And that's why I'm very cautious with the word talent, because there's potential in people. The question is, how do we enable that potential to come to the forefront, right? How do we turn potential into talent? And one of the things that we talk about all the time at the Selling Factory, because our model is focused on students while in school, they work 10 to 12 hours a week. It's micro work. So we function where 4 to 6 part-timers function as one full-time individual. And we can do something that is very hard for a company to do. And something you just talked about, Matt, and switching people into different spaces, is we embrace turnover. It's very hard for a company that's hiring an SDR to embrace an individual leaving. And our goal, and I know, Matt, without speaking for you, we've talked about this, your goal is to launchpad an individual in 1 to 2 years of SDR work into a SaaS company and let them expand as an account executive there while getting the tools, the training, and the knowledge. For the Selling Factory, we want to launchpad their careers into selling. So by working 10 to 12 hours a week, they get a framework of understanding how to to talk to individuals on the phone confidently and understand the difference between features and benefits, understand objection handling. One of our great stories is an individual who went to work for Wall Street this year and just graduated. He was on the phones for about 2 years. And first month, he did 2 times. He made 2,000 outbound calls compared to the next closest peer, which was 1,000. And the next closest peer was 500 outbound calls. And he would say it's because he had the confidence to get in there and make the calls. And so having that opportunity to embrace turnover and really develop individuals gets them to a point where it allows for a team to be much more focused on increasing their ROI, their expertise. So focus on the expertise as a CEO, a CMO, a CRO, as opposed to having to manage these teams. And what we found is the cultural context, and I don't say this lightly. Matt and I are in Florida, University of Florida, and although I'm a Buckeye, I have to at least acknowledge that I'm a proud Buckeye. University of Florida is one of the top 6 colleges in the country. The talent that goes there are willing to learn and they're driven to succeed. And as is a challenge in the school marketplace or university marketplace, we're not teaching the willingness to fail, because individuals are trying to get a grade and they assume that's success. Well, in the selling factory, we're teaching the ability to fail 9 out of 10 times, right? 49 out of 50 times, 99 out of 100 times, right? As you're continuing to make those calls. And when you're going into the marketplace and you're already feeling a confidence and an understanding that it's okay to fail, that's a real power that individuals are going into the marketplace. So yeah, I think that what you had talked about and how we kind of link together in how we develop individuals first in this process of selling, and then where they'll go to qualified meetings is really in that SaaS place, in the cybersecurity space, in the security space to engage people. But we have found, and I'll mention one more thing. I'm a rabbi, so I can go on forever. But one of the things that we've also found is SDR, the production of one SDR on an 8-hour period is, you can only get a certain amount of production with one person. And psychologically, you can only get about a 5 to 6 hour max production, probably even a 3-hour max, 2 to 3 hour next max. And then for another 2 hours, it's just not much. When you split that up to 10 to 12 hours, you're getting an individual's max 2 to 3 hours of production across the board. And it's similar in the sense that, when you're doing a repetitive process and you can break that up, you ultimately see higher production. And that's a real key that we found in this sales partnership or SDR partnership. And I can imagine you found as well, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. We continue to monitor that, right? Because, the more experienced folks get in organizations like the Selling Factory, the better experience they're going to have over here with us when it becomes a full-time engagement and they're really trying to accelerate. And as an SDR, I made 250,000 phone calls in my SDR career. So there's not a tool or a process or any of these things that I'm not fully aware of as a CEO myself. And I would look at my production day, and there would be days where I would make 4 to 5 hours of outbound. And then there was days where I came in and just made it an entire day of outbound for 7, 8 hours when I was just on a mission. So it's just, we all have different energy levels, and to stand in that mindset is it's hard. So be understanding of that, right? You're not going to sit there and this isn't a factory working job where you can just sit there all day. We need to be doing things to educate ourselves. We need to be looking at data more strategically. We need to be looking at our tools and everything else. What Adam and I are really focused on doing, as organizations are trying to figure out, am I going to build something internally? And if so, hey, that's great. Where can we help educate you on putting together the best internship and giving the sales development reps the best experience possible? And if you're going to build something internalized full time, right, what are the things that you need to go and do that? Whether you come to us and we build a program in a box for you and help you put together the tools, the process, the methodology, the messaging, all those things, or whether you're doing it yourself, we want to be an advocate for that. We are really here for the success of the SDRs, the SDR manager, and then making sure that leadership truly understands what the goals and objectives are. Adam, we are at our time. I don't know if you have any closing remarks here.
I would just say that, and I agree completely, is that one of the beauties of what we have been able to accomplish is we're really setting up the next generation of SDRs and sales professionals. And we have seen our talent go on to extraordinary companies, whether that's Qualified Meetings or Cisco or KPMG or Ernst & Young or EY, I apologize, EY and VMware, so many different opportunities because they've had that growth in the selling factory to launch their careers. So we look forward to building more and more partnerships with organizations that can use our tools and our skills to ultimately increase their revenue.
Yeah, and I mean, same thing with us, really. We try to get 3 to 4 years out of the career development path that we bring folks in to experience. And then we have partnerships with our clients where they can actually go in and get a job offer from our clients. And we do that as like a recruiting fee. And then we go backfill, recruit, train, hire. And getting back to that recruiting piece, when I was in the SDR manager role, it was very hard, right? Because I had a recruiter at headquarters, but they had 30 other positions to fill in. They weren't just looking for SDRs. There's a very specific skill set in hiring, sales folks. We have our qualified sales recruitment brand that we're launching next year in early February or March that focuses on finding the right candidates for your organization, because there's a lot around, how do you come in and do role plays? What kind of testing should you do? There's a whole development, I guess, around just the recruiting piece of this. And once you figure out the recruiting, the training, the process, the program, the tool stack, it becomes very easy. And a lot of organizations can do this stuff internally. We're not here to discourage that. Even when we join organizations, we don't look to displace anyone, right? We want to come in and become part of that team and make sure that sales development is successful as a whole, not just through us, right? We want to make sure the internal people are just as successful as we are. Adam, I really appreciate this. You and I are going to do some kind of side projects to try to put the education out there more and more, but thank you very much for joining us today.
Great to be here, and really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Great. So closing out today, this has been a very, very fun day for us. Oktoberfest will happen again next October, right? It's the theme around, October, Oktoberfest, and we're going to get more and more engaged as the world we're in allows us to go out and throw the beer gardens and have things like that going on. I can't wait until we can hopefully get back into that environment. Today, I want to thank a bunch of people, right? Embark Collective, thank you so much for opening up your space here. Anybody wanting to come to Tampa, Florida and start a business, look up Embark. We also have the Wave here in Tampa. This is one of the best ecosystems for startups in the country. And I have looked at every state within the U.S. Before I moved here 5 years ago from Maryland, and I chose to move here to start a company because of the awesome resources that we have around us. DCE, thank you very much for hosting the event today. You've done an excellent job in a live situation. Zoom Info, our prime sponsor here, couldn't done it without you. We don't start any program on the planet without having Zoom Info data. Exec Vision, Burroughs Training, AISP, and the Bridge Group. There's going to be some great emails that go out to give you guys links to more information around them. Oktoberfest.com will go live all year and be an informational portal for SDRs, SDR managers, and key leadership that really focuses on how to be successful. It's going to be agnostic to QM and everyone that sponsors it. It's really going to be a place where we can go and learn together and a place to socialize things that are going on in the inside sales space. This couldn't have gone better. I really appreciate everybody coming and joining in. If you need any information from anyone that's been on the panel, just send us an email. We'll be glad to connect anyone to anyone that's been on this broadcast today. Thank you very much. Happy Oktoberfest. Please go have a beverage. Also want to talk to you really quick. We are having a happy hour on Thursday, December 17th. Going to give away a bunch of beer mugs, do some cool stuff, maybe have a sales comedian, some other things going on that broadcast. Look for an update from that coming out soon. Thank you very much and take care.